Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to another local webinar by Trotec Laser. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lauren van Rooyen and I will be your host today. So today we will be taking a look at how you can cut and engrave various textiles with your laser machine. Now I know some of you may be surprised that we said that you can actually cut and engrave different textiles with your machine. But today we'll be showing you why you should actually be doing it too and the various benefits when you decide to do that. Single layer fabrics can be cut faster and therefore more productively by using a laser as opposed to a blade. And faster cutting time, of course, means higher production, which means an increase in sales. And who doesn't want an increase in sales? Laser processing is also a contactless, toolless process. And the materials are never touched throughout the laser engraving process, which means that there's no risk of it being warped or stretched out of proportion. During the cutting process, the laser beam actually carefully melts the edges of the material and produces a nicely sealed off edge. It's important to note though that not all materials can be processed with your laser. So let's start off with a list of materials that can actually be processed by your laser safely. The first one would be cotton, ideal for things like quilting, bedding, and other various materials. Silk, which is perfect for the fashion industry. Linen, leather, which we'll go into detail about later. And of course, denim, a tough, timeless fabric that we will be using for a demonstration right about now. So I have this denim satchel bag that we will be showing you how we're going to use to test how we would do engraving on a fabric like this. So I'm going to start by putting the machine on, opening the machine lid. We'll insert the denim bag, carefully fold away the excess material like the handles and things like that. Shift that up a bit there. And I'm just going to secure my material with some magnets. And then the next step is going to be using the focus tool to set the focus for the machine when it engraves this specific type of material. So we do that by balancing a focus tool on the edge over there, and then actually shifting up the material until the focus tool pops off just like that. Now remember just to remove your focus tool when engraving, because engraving a focus tool doesn't work. Ask me, I would know. Right, so now we're going to switch over to Ruby. For those of you that don't know, Trotec has recently launched this new software called Ruby, which is supposed to go hand in hand with your laser machine to take you from managing your jobs through to designing them, and then eventually through the different stages till you get through to your finished project. Great. So what I'm going to do is over here in my list, I'm going to take the Trotec logo, double click on it, and this is what I will be using to test the engraving on our denim satchel. So for those of you that are uncertain of this part, black means that it is for engraving. For this specific job, we will just be doing engraving, but in other applications, you'll see that we use a red hairline color to indicate if it's going to be a cut. So here is our engraving over here. I'm quite happy with it as is, so I click on Create Job. Right, so now we are through here to our Prepare stage in Ruby, where I will position my job where the laser is pointed. So this little icon over here resembles whereabouts the laser head. So I'm going to take this piece of my artwork over here and just pop it into the bottom corner of the job. Just like that. I'm just going to resize this as well to about 30. Let's put that in there. Perfect. I'm quite happy with that over there. So we will click on Q, and then we will click on the little machine. Right, so now it's basically showing you what you will run. It shows you over here what jobs you have in your queue. If there are multiple jobs, it will show you multiple little artworks here at the bottom. But to now process our artwork, we just simply hit play. Right, so the machine is going to start running my sample. It should be fairly quickly. And you'll see the reason why we like using denim is because denim produces quite a high contrast when engraving. So it's really an ideal fabric to use even for branding or things like that. And just like that, our sample is done. Great. So as you can see over here, that's the little Trotec logo that we had engraved. And you can see the edges are nice and crisp, the engraving is clear and has a high contrast, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. So you would use the same principles when you're testing other fabrics as well, by doing smaller pieces and then seeing how the engraving results or the cutting results suit what you're needing to do for your application. Right, so as I mentioned, there are also materials that you should not be processing on your laser. So let's talk about those. Generally speaking, when you're looking at using a material, you should try to keep away from materials that contain any carbon fibers or PVC. Sorry, let me just switch this off. There we go. All right, any materials that contain PVC. These are both extremely harmful, not only for your machine, because it could cause quite hectic corrosion, but also for your own health, as it releases chemical gases when inhaled by you. It's just not going to end well. Another type of textile that you should try and avoid is anything that is flame retardant. So a good example of that is the leather bag that we just did. I didn't cut it. That's because denim is considered a flame retardant textile, and it would probably not be able to cut through with your laser. One of the most popular questions that we get asked about is whether or not you can process artificial leathers, or commonly known as pleathers. And unfortunately, the short answer is no, you cannot. Pleathers and artificial leathers generally contain PVC. And as we've just discussed, that is extremely harmful for you and your laser. So it should definitely be avoided at all times. Having said that though, we do understand the appeal of pleather, especially considering that it's a very, very close likeness to a real leather and is a lot more cost effective to use, which is why we were so excited to launch our very own Laserleather range. So over here, I have a piece of the material. You'll see it has a laser finish. It is a high quality artificial leather that is smooth to the touch and has an excellent finish for laser processing. It is two-tone and comes in a variety of different colors, which means that you can produce a multitude of different jobs to suit your client's needs. Another benefit of the Laserleather is that it can also produce highly detailed engraving and cutting with minimal extra work required. So let's get straight into this demonstration. I'm going to be making a DIY pencil roll-up, well, a miniature version thereof, and you can find the link to this artwork on our website for free, but I'll show you that in a sec. I'm going to start again by putting the machine on, place our fabric into the machine bed, and once again, I'm just going to secure it with my magnets, making sure it's nice and flat. Then, of course, the next step is to focus using our focus tool. So we'll balance that on the edge and slowly but surely raise the material bed until the focus tool pops off, just like that. Remember to take the focus tool out the way, and we close the machine lid. Great, so let's move back into Ruby. So to get my artwork, I'm going to show you where you can find a library of DIY samples that we put together for you. So this is the troteclaser.com website, our standard one. You'll then click on the menu button in the top right-hand corner and go down to Knowledge. Once you click on Knowledge, you'll go to DIY samples. And this page has a whole bunch of different projects and applications that you can try out in your own time using different materials and different methods. The great thing about this is that it shows you every single step of the way what machine was used, what materials required, what your settings should be, and even how to finalize your application at the end. Great, so this is the pencil roll that we'll be creating. In the normal circumstances, I would click download for the graphics file, and it will download into your downloads folder in both a PDF and a CorelDRAW file. So I've already downloaded this, so I'm going to close this tab now, and we're going to switch over to Ruby. I've saved my PDF of the pencil roll on the desktop, and this is so quick and easy. You literally just click, drag, and drop it into the queue, and odds your uncle, there it is. So here's my artwork. Today, I just want to show you a simplified version of this. So I'm going to delete some of the little extra straps. Obviously, if you're making it for practical purposes, you shouldn't really do that. But for today, that'll be just fine. Great. So as you can see, here we have cutting and engraving in this application. So the red indicates the cut lines and the black indicates the engraving. So we'll click on Create Job. It will then go through to the prepared stage once again. Remember, this is the marker for the laser. So I'm going to click and drag this over here, and I'm going to size my job to about 200. There we go. Perfect. We'll just position that again. Great. Let's quickly delete that. Oops. Perfect. There we go. All right. So over here, we're going to change the material that was used. We're going to go through to Laserleather. So this is your material database. If you ever create your own settings for materials, you can save them here and just easily find them, but whatever you name them. So at the moment, I've got my engraving settings on a power of 80% and a speed of 80% as well. The cutting process, I've got power on 30 and speed on 1.2%. Great. So those are the only two colors that we'll be using here. Now I press Q. The job has been added to the queue, as you can see over there, and we will go through to the little machine icon. I can see there's no other jobs here in the queue. It's ready to run, and I simply just press play. Great. So while that's running, let's talk about a few do's and don'ts of when you are using materials and processing them on your laser. We'll start with the do's. Number one, make sure your fabric is secure at all times. Whether you're using magnets, like I've been using, or a weight to weigh down the edges of the material, or even masking tape. Either of those techniques can be used to make sure that the material that you're using is secure at all times. Number two, always test your textiles. Even if you're working with the same type of fabric, but in different batches, you should always test your materials to make sure that you have consistent results for your application. Number three, use a 1.5-inch lens. For high detail cutting and engraving, this lens is perfectly suited for that. Number four, air assist will help you in preventing any flaming risks that might occur. Of course, we don't want there to be any flaming, so we really, really encourage you to use your air assist. Number five, if you're uncertain of the material that you're using and what chemicals have been used in it, I highly suggest that you perhaps chat to your supplier and see if you can get a material data sheet so that if there are any chemicals in there that we shouldn't be lasering, you'll know before you even begin the process. All right, let's move on to the don'ts. Number one, do not stretch your fabric. It's the same as when you're working with a blade type tool, even an overlocker or a sewing machine. It can warp and throw out the proportions of your job. So we definitely don't want that. Number two, stay away from using high power when you're engraving. Obviously, when you do this, engraving removes the surface of the material. So if you engrave a logo and it's on stretching material, it could eventually wear through and tear through that material from the engraving. Number three, if at any point while you're busy cutting and engraving your textiles, you see the material start to lift, immediately stop or pause your job. This is a huge flaming risk, and like I said, should be stopped immediately, the material is secured, and then you can carry on with your process. Number four, and I'm sure you know this by now, never use textiles that contain PVC. Great, so my job is complete. We'll open up the laser. So this is a real miniature version of what we were supposed to do. Obviously, for timing efforts and things like that, we wanted to keep it short. But this is the gist of it. So that is our miniature, super miniature pencil roll. And you can see the two-tone effect of the engraving really gives it a very nice effect and actually highlights the quality of the cutting and engraving. I really encourage you to check out this material for yourself. It's available on our web shop. And if you don't know what that address is, it's www.engraving-supplies.co.za. That means we've come to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or contact your local representative. Thanks again. Take care.